What's going on, everybody? Hope you're well. Let's just get right into this. I'm talking about what I refer to as the 3-7 rule as far as weapons goes. So when you're selecting your weapons, and you look here, we have the list of all of them available in zombies, you'll see that there's 10 categories, and each weapon has its own purpose and point, but what I want to focus on is this space right here between SMGs and shotguns. Put a slash in there and you've got 3 in the front, 7 in the back. And that's what I'm talking about with the 3-7 rule. So there's no, crazy jujitsu or some sorcery or anything going on. It's just basic math and positioning. But let's talk about what they actually mean. When you're choosing a loadout, you want to make sure you have one weapon from category 3 and one from 7. You could reverse that and do 7 and 3. Primary and secondary doesn't matter. You can also have two weapons from category 3. It's a little bit of overkill, but it'll work. But you don't want to do 2 from the 7 category. That's going to be a little inhibiting, and you may find it difficult to get certain things done. There have been a few times that I found myself bringing in 2 weapons from that 7 category, and I found myself limited to what I could do. And I ended up getting myself into a little spot of bother there. So my suggestion, don't bring the double 7s. Now, I've set this up to be just a standard stock BP-50 assault rifle, so we can look at the comparisons on these graphs and on these lines and see where we're picking up green and we're picking up red to a basic version of the first gun in each category. So this gives us a really good baseline to start off with and see how these guns compare to each other. And you can really get yourself into a mathematical rabbit hole just trying to figure out what these actually mean and what these little bars represent in terms of what it actually does in the game. But you know what? We're going to try to keep this basic, so let's just look at it at a basic level. Damage is pretty simple. It just means how much damage does one round from this gun do. Fire rate is how many bullets does it fire. Range is kind of interesting. Range means effective range. So how far can this gun shoot and still do 100% damage? You'll notice sometimes that you can take some really long shots with weapons, but you're still getting a little bit of damage. That means you're shooting outside of its effective range, but it's still able to hit. Accuracy is simply, is this gun going to hit where you're aiming at? Recoil control is how bouncy is it? Mobility is your ability to run, jump, sprint, and walk with this weapon in hand. Does it slow you down, or are you pretty speedy? And then finally, handling is how quickly can you ADS and back, as well as how quickly can you swap weapons between your primary and your secondary. So you can see that as we scroll through here, we get a lot of consistency in those first 3 sets, the auto rifles, the battle rifles, and the submachine guns. But in that last 7, you start to see some pretty hefty spikes going plus and negative. And that's kind of more a specialized task where, sniper rifles have an incredible amount of damage, but their rate of fire is extremely slow. And you'll see that LMGs have an incredible rate of fire and a decent amount of damage, but their handling and mobility that you sacrifice to have them, it makes you question as to whether or not the benefits I'm getting are worth it. And in the middle of a scrap, how well is this gun going to perform? So that's why you want to always carry one of those first 3 as your stable backup weapon that you can rely on to get anything you need to done. And then the other weapon that you're carrying, that's the one that can be a little specialized to a specific task that you can help to create and make happen instead of just being victimized, if that makes sense. That's where the 3-7 rule really helps to keep you alive and give you something reliable to fall back on. If you're going in just to do some challenges, like say your daily challenges, or if you're going in for weekly challenges, and they're specific to a gun type, you want to make sure that you don't pair up too many of the same or similar guns. When you're doing prestige challenges, they're going to be kind of specific to a weapon class, possibly even a specific weapon itself, and camos are always specific to the gun that you're doing. But no matter what you're trying to do, you should always have one of these 3 weapons in your loadout, just to be safe, to make sure that you don't get yourself in any trouble. I've found that if you're doing something like, say, a sniper camo, you're going to be very limited on the contracts that you can do. And snipers aren't all that effective against boss enemies if you decide to do like a HVT target or a big bounty. And they can definitely cause a problem if you're trying to do something like an escort contract. But what you can do is bring an assault rifle to pair up with that weapon, which has a lot more firepower, a lot more rate of fire, and can deal out a lot more damage to more targets at once. And that'll help keep you from being stuck on just a few certain things like just doing deliver cargo contracts because you can't effectively engage the enemy. Another good thing is there are 53 weapons in the first three categories on the selection screen versus 73 weapons in that last 7, which means you can carry one of these 3 in almost every deployment that you go through while carrying one of those second groupings in order to work on camos and camo progression without having to do too many repeats. It's also worth pointing out that some of the good underbarrel attachments like the Purifier or the Limb Ripper, and even going back into Modern Warfare 2 when you spin all the way to the end of the underbarrel lists, you'll see things like the Drill Charge or the Fire Drake, which still have some viability in the game now. And you can only put those on assault rifles or battle rifles. So if you don't have one, you're missing out on this option of making one gun into 2. Now, there's always going to be some outliers. A perfect example of that is the Moore's sniper rifle, which is a sniper rifle that once you pack a punch it gains an area of effect explosion, which suddenly now we've got a sniper rifle that's good at clearing out hordes. But we're just talking basics here. We're not trying to take into consideration all the variants and special effects that certain guns have. So my advice is if you're going to set up your loadout, make sure you've got an auto rifle, a battle rifle, or a submachine gun in one of those slots just so you can keep your sanity and make it so that you can get things done. And with that, we're done here. So if you enjoy the content, like, share, and subscribe, please. And as always, I will see you out there. Take care.